The Football Show on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster-than-ever BoyleSports app for exclusive price enhancements on the biggest games around. Download it now. BoyleSports. Time to play.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then.
What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
So, what a mad thing to say. The World Cup is on this week. This week. We're now not talking next week. We're now not talking 2 weeks' time. I can now say things to you like Friday will be pretty good because Spain play Portugal. And that's on in Sochi. So that's at 7 o'clock, Spain against Portugal on Friday. It's finally here. Obviously, it's Russia, Saudi Arabia on opening night on Thursday. But Spain, Portugal, I think, will kick a lot of people's weekends and World Cups off in a big way. Graham Hunter is with the Spanish camp and he's going to join us a little later on and give us his take on how they are shaping up. A lot of people feeling very good about Spain's chances. But I'm delighted to say, before he heads off to Russia himself, the great man has joined us. That's you, Pat Nevin. You're the great man.
Yeah, I'll accept that with the irony in which it was given.
No irony. So what's your itinerary? When do you go? I think JP mentioned tomorrow. Is it tomorrow you go?
Yeah, I decided just have a little jaunt before I went off. So in the space of 5 days, I'm doing 12,000 miles. So if I look a little bleary-eyed, I'm right in the middle of those 12,000 miles right now.
Wow.
3 days ago, I went. Would you believe I went over to Las Vegas, and for 2 days. Who goes to Las Vegas for 2 days?
I don't know.
And then come back. And I've been here this morning. I arrived back in Scotland this morning.
Someone on a stag weekend? Is that who goes to Vegas for 2 days?
No, sadly not. No, it was a Chelsea Sports Club thing that was happening over there. They asked me to go as a guest. But I said I could only do it very quickly, and they went, yeah, okay then. So I expected them to say no.
Yeah, be polite and take the hint.
And then I said, well, that's about 8 time zones, and then I need to come back and do another 4 or 5 the other way. Yeah, that'll be all right.
Okay.
Yeah, okay then, we'll do it.
Okay. Well, then we appreciate you talking to us then. So I know you're going over with 5 Live and working for the Beeb over there. Have you got your, how does this work? I mean, people are curious with this kind of stuff as much as anything around the World Cup. Do you know what games you're doing and when, right through to the end of your stay? Or is it, well, we'll give you your first week and play it by ear?
No, sort of, yes. They need to do that because they need to, book all the hotels, they book all the flights, because the flights all sell out. Some of them have been sold out for years, so you have to then book trains, or some of the train journeys are about 11 hours to get between the places. So they book it as early as possible and try and do it. So I know my first game is Argentina versus Iceland. I've got Brazil, Costa Rica coming up after that, and so on and so on. There's a whole bunch of games. But what then happens after you get to the group stage, after you get beyond that, you're only guessing after that, because you don't know, they're very nice to BBC, but they're not going to ask me to do England, are they? Let's be honest about it. They've got 1 or 2 other guys that are probably better to do England than me. So they kind of guess what's going to happen. So I'm guessing, they probably guess that England will come in second, so they go ahead that. But they might have to adapt it and change it. But I certainly know I've got games all the way through. A couple of games in Moscow, then up to St. Petersburg for 4 or 5 days, then down to Moscow, and then it goes mad after that to a bunch of cities which I will learn how to pronounce them when I get there.
Yeah.
That one, I don't know what to start on. The one with 2 names anyway. But no, looking forward to seeing it. I'm desperate. A lot of people have been sending the build-up, which, as you know, every single World Cup, they say, it's going to be terrible. This is going to be awful. It's going to be really dangerous. And you go, and suddenly you're not being, hijacked walking along in Rio, or you're not being attacked in Johannesburg. And I suspect it's going to be exactly the same in Russia. I think it'll be absolutely fine. There will be a little bits of problems here and there, but I think it'll be something I'm really excited about and really looking forward to.
Yeah, in the main, these things generally work out, don't they? I must say, there are so many reasons to really not want it to go well for Russia, for Vladimir Putin, for everything that Russia represents in so many ways at the moment. And yet, God, I do feel kind of excited now that we're within a few days of it. Not least because it's such an open World Cup, and this is the question. I suspect and hope it's actually going to be quite an attacking World Cup. Everything in world football at the moment suggests that we're going to have goals and more goals, and you're kind of hoping for something akin to what we saw in the knockout stages of the Champions League over the last few years.
Yeah, well, when you look at teams you're expecting to do well, I heard you mention in Belgium just before that, but I mean, they're a massively attack-minded side. If anybody's watched or listened to, but specifically watched the Brazil over the last year and the last couple of build-up games, I mean, they're playing a ludicrous system. I mean, it's a hilariously attack-minded system. They've usually got 4 at the back, sometimes vaguely a sitting midfielder, and the rest of them just get up forward and score as many goals as you possibly can. That's back to the old days of Brazil in 1970. That's the attitude that they had. Although some people would suggest, and I understand that's all very well, but if you did that last time and then they got to the semi-finals and get thumped 7-1, it probably isn't that good a plan. So, but you're right. You look all the way through it. The teams that are fancied, you expect Belgium, you expect France. Although I was sitting in a bar in Las Vegas, and a bunch of guys said to me, "Who do you think is going to win a World Cup?" And I said, "Well, it's really open, but I definitely feel as if France have got a great chance." 2 hours later, France drew with USA's under 15s, it looked like. Their second string side, and it was France's strongest side out there, and they just couldn't find a way through until the very end. So I think it's a brilliantly open one this time, a fantastically open one. I mean, I want Argentina to do well, and there's no way they're going to play defensively because they ain't any good defensively. There's just all those good attackers that we know about.
We'll swing back in a roundabout to get your preview of the next month ahead. Your own World Cup experience, I had somehow expected, I apologise for drudging this up, but I just somehow expected that somewhere between 86 and 90 you would have featured. Obviously 86, Jock Stein passed away in the build-up in Cardiff and Alex Ferguson went, and at that stage you were 23 and your Chelsea career was very much up and running.
And I was international at the time. I was in the squad.
Okay.
So Sir Alec had brought me into the squad. I played against England, and he phoned me up just before it. It was a tight one. Scotland had a lot of good players, and Davy Cooper was a great player. Strachan was in that sort of position as well. But we had a lot of good. I mean, we had a serious amount of top forwards. But Sir Alec Ferguson phoned me up just before it. He said, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to take you for this one. We've got a really strong squad, but just to let you know, if anything goes wrong, you're the first man that I'm going to phone up and get you in." So I went into training the next day and I met David Speedy. David Speedy at Chelsea said to me, "I got a phone call for Alec Ferguson last night. He's not taking me, but he says I'm the first man that he's going to bring." So, very good.
That's man management.
To be honest, I didn't even take it badly. I just thought, no. If I'm not absolutely the number one, then give it to somebody else. The tough one for me actually was the next one. 1990, because I was, at Everton doing well, but I got a cruciate injury, and I was over it, and I'd played in the cup final before that, and I was pretty disappointed at missing that one. But once again, I was in the squad right up till before the championship, left out the squad, and then was in the squad straight after it. And it happened again in 94.
Yeah.
So 3 times I was in the squad before the World Cup, dropped, and then the squad after the World Cup. So
sickening.
I'm trying really hard not to sound particularly bitter about it.
Yeah, I would think that is hard because, so it was Ferguson in 86 and it was Andy Roxburgh in 1990. And I know you had played under him at underage level, and in 82 when Scotland had won an under-18 European event, the European Championships, Roxburgh had been part of the management setup there, and you got player of the tournament. So he was familiar with you for a long way out, and clearly kind of a fanny. I guess he would have seen you at your best coming through, and then all. So, God, if you play in an end of season match, I'm surprised he didn't take you.
But even more than that, Craig Brown's the next manager, and he was the guy that brought me into professional football at Clyde.
Right.
So even when I had my mates as the manager, I couldn't get a game in the World Cups. I'll be honest with you, I know this sounds really strange, and the build-up you get to World Cups now and how important it is. I actually wasn't that caught up about it at the time, and it's never really bothered me that much, purely because you realise if you're in a squad of 23 and you've scraped in it, because I would obviously have just scraped in it, you probably wouldn't have got a game. So he'd have gone for 10 minutes. Well, kind of so what, really? That's not really what you would want to do. So I have to remember, I had great summers. Those summers, I had a good time.
Did you really? Because
I'd rather have been there, and
Yeah.
everyone would rather have been there. But if it's not for you, it won't go past you. And I was fortunate. I got to a Euros, and that's you just shrug your shoulders and get on with it. The way a lot of us are, professional footballers that are playing at a decent level, the top clubs, and you're one of the better players at your club. You kind of don't want to go to a tournament and be a bit rubbish, i.e., in a team that doesn't do well. If you go and the team gets to the quarters or the semis or something like that, then you would be absolutely gutted. But Scotland never get out of the group.
Yeah. I'm surprised at that, I must say. I mean, I understand your logic, especially if you're one of the better players at the club and used to success and achieving. But just to tick it off the bucket list, just to hear the national anthem and stand there and have all that pomp and pageantry and just say, I've played at a World Cup, and give dad a wave in the crowd, all that kind of stuff, I just would have thought, God, that'd eat away at me through the summers of 86 and 1994.
Yeah, I suppose you could. I mean, I just didn't have that kind of attitude. If you play football, if you played internationals at all, you've had that thing where you've said to your friends, your family, you're an international, and you shrug your shoulders. It's kind of, I know. As I said, David Speedy certainly didn't feel the same way about it as I did, but it's not, I'm not hiding it, there's no pretense. You'd rather be there, but it wasn't the end of the world. You just get on with it. Who knows, it might have gone well, I might have been lucky, somebody might have got injured, might have got a game, might have had a great tournament. And I loved international football, and I found international football a lot easier than domestic football. More often than not, you're playing against guys that don't know you, and that's pretty good for a creative player.
Yes, yes.
Because they don't know your tricks. So you feel as if you could do something when you're there, but again, Scotland had very, very good players at the time, and you just get on with it. Funnily enough, I haven't been to all the World Cups I've now been to as a pundit, etc. That I think they'd probably be at least as enjoyable, because there's no stress involved. You actually go, enjoy it, love the games, learn the games. You don't become partisan during the actual commentary, but you can actually fall in love with certain teams. And that's a brilliant thing to be able to do as well. So I love going to the tournaments, and I've been a whole bunch of them now, and every single one of them have been extraordinarily special in their own way. What
was your first one as a pundit?
Before we go into that, I have to tell you one quick story.
Sure.
Back. It wasn't World Cup, it's the Euros, but it's not dissimilar. When Scotland were playing against England in the Euros in England. But I don't know if I've told you before, but I met Pelé a little while before then, and we got on really well. And he said, "Oh well, I'm the guest of honour that day. I'll come and make a big fuss of you when we go and do the handshakes beforehand." And I went, "Oh great." Then I get dropped. Cheers. They've all got some fantastic memories of their own. I was in South Korea in 2002 for the entirety of that one, and travelling around South Korea, which is a fabulous, fabulous country. But watching the Koreans and actually going to all their games, and the fact they got all the way to the semi-finals, and the reaction of I was going to say fans, not fans, the entire nation was extraordinary to see. And they played some pretty good football. Yes, they had 12 players on the pitch most of the time with the referee, but they were brilliant to see. And there was one moment, and it'll stick with me all my life, and it was in a hotel in a place called Seowipo, which is Jeju, beautiful island off the south coast of South Korea, and they film Bond movies there, etc. And I had one piece of work to do, which was to go down and watch Brazil play, and I think it was against China actually, one evening at the most beautiful stadium I'd ever seen. We're in a 5-star hotel, we're overlooking the best beach I've ever been to, in a cliff, and drinking the best wine that I just about drank in my life, and I'm thinking, the stupid gets are paying me for this. These people are mental. You think I wouldn't pay them? And it wasn't, the goal scorers that day. I think Ronaldo got one that day, and Ronaldinho actually, I think he got one that day as well. So there's memories like that are just extra special, and it's not just the football; it's the things you see and the people you meet there.
Yeah, it was interesting. we do like a Sunday paper review here on the show on Sundays, obviously. And it was very striking yesterday that lots of columnists, both good and bad, some angry, some less angry. It was like there was some kind of armistice yesterday where to a man or woman, but it was mainly men in the sports sections who happened to be writing about it, they seemed to think this was the weekend to just write about their World Cup childhood memories. And there was lots of columns littered with, I remember doing this with my dad, I remember this game. You know, there was one column which had his life mapped out in 4-year cycles and what he remembers. And there was a great piece by Declan Lynch, a journalist over here. And he was just saying, you know, he's bunkering down for the next month. And he said, one of the extraordinary things to be aware of if you're a football fan over the next while is you will remember events over the next 64 games that will stay with you if you live to be 100. And there are very few other things that will happen to you over the next month that you will remember when you're 100. And, you know, if someone says to him now 82 or 74 or 2002, the first thing that pops into his head is where I was in the World Cup. And he said a bit like music, and that's what made me think of you, a bit like music, those World Cup years are almost your first clue as to where the hell you were in your life, what age you were, what you were thinking, what kind of person you were. I guess a bit like a kitchen smell in Ratatouille as well. Ratatouille, World Cups and music, Pat. I'm putting them in the same pot.
I'll give you that, actually. As you're speaking, I'm sitting on a couch in the East End of Glasgow in 1970, watching Brazil play, right, and being absolutely and utterly... I mean, I was only 7 years of age at the time, 7 years of age, but the beautiful golden shirts, the way they were playing football, you know, and I think you will never see anything better than this. And you have to remember, at the same time, every week I was going to watch Glasgow Celtic, who had one of the best teams in Europe. You know, they'd won the European Cup 67, and in 1970 they got to the final. Young kids like Kenny Dalglish coming through, as well as the great players they had before that. And then I'm watching Brazil and I'm thinking, I quite fancy that game. Yeah, that's the kind of way I quite like to play it. And you're right, it not only reminds you of what you were and who you were. I decided if I ever play football, that's how I'm going to try and play it. It'd pure excitement. Be positive all the time, be creative, and do it with style if you possibly can as well. So you're right. For me, I can close my eyes and think of the Brazil games, particularly the semi-final and the final, and think, yeah, that's the reason why you play football. And until Barcelona in the last 10 years or so, I still didn't think I'd seen a team that had come close to them. But I have to admit, I probably have now with that Barcelona. Is that
right? Because I just presumed there was a degree of nostalgia, and you know, I can't presume that. Well, if I watch Brazil 1970 over 90 minutes and watch all the games, it won't be that. You know, it'll just be a very slow, not very impressive product. It's interesting you're still having them up there with Barcelona in an unbiased. You know, very kind of.
I think I've got a couple of times I've done it just as a fun thing, gone through 90-minute games and just analysed them like I would analyse it for, you know, any of the companies I work for. Yeah. And yes, that particular one looks slower, but remember it was played at altitude. Sure. It was ridiculously hot at the time as well, so you have to factor that into it. It's also games at the end of a tournament are a little bit different as well, but their ability to control games and control the play, and the fact that every single one of the players were doing step overs and skills, including the centre backs and the full backs, it just kind of wasn't really thought of or considered that you get 9-10 players in that team all wanting to be skillful. So no, I don't think it is, you know, rose tinted specs. I think we're an unbelievably good team. Okay,
so our recent World Cup winners then, obviously Germany 4 years ago, Spain in 2010, we did Italy 06, Brazil 02. You're going back 20 years now to France, and then Brazil 94, and say West Germany 90, and I'll throw in Maradona in 86. Which of those are truly great teams that stand the test of time, that will be remembered in 100 years?
I think the French should be. You know, French football for that little period was extraordinary. It's a wee bit eclipsed now by what the Spaniards have done, and I think you have to put that Spanish team in as well. It's been one of the fantastic sides. There's been good and bad with the Brazilians as well, but the shame for them is they were always going to get compared to 1970, and even in Brazil, it still looks a wee bit, you know, it's a wee bit jaded in comparison with them. But I mean, it's great teams to watch, fantastic ability all the way through the teams. No, I don't. Some of them I quite liked. And they were fine teams. They were the best national teams in the world at the time. But if we're now comparing things in a different level here. We're saying, right, who were the best of them all?
Yes.
And there's very few. I'm thinking Spain. I'm thinking the French team. And I'm thinking, back to that 1970 Brazil side. And that's to take nothing away. The other ones were very good.
Yeah.
Some of them were, but that would be my top three anyway.
Would it? Okay, very interesting. Turning back to 2018, as open as this thing is going to be, it doesn't seem like we're going to have anything approaching that level of quality. Spain 2010, France 19.